Hey guys, welcome back to another movie review video. Today we're looking at 2011's Rango, an animated film directed by Gore Verbinski and written by John Logan. Right off the bat, before we even hop into the main juicy plots of the video, this is a really good movie. I highly recommend everybody who's watching this video to either go watch the movie yourself or watch my video in completion, because there's a lot that I'd like to say about this movie, and the way that I do things is I will do a rough summary in my own words of the plot, giving a little bit of my own tidbits here and there, but mostly it's just the plot in the movie section of the video. At the end of the video, I do a more in-depth review and or my opinions and my score for the movie. Rango, right off the bat, sets itself up as one of the best animated films to have ever come out that isn't from Disney or Pixar. It is one of 3 best animated feature films that aren't Disney and Pixar. Happy Feet and Spider-Man's Into the Spider-Verse are the other 2 that I'm aware of. But before we hop in, be sure to leave a like if you like, and subscribe for more videos like this. You guys have been killing it when it comes to subscribing, and I can't appreciate it enough. Let's see if we can't get to 500 subscribers by the end of my birthday month, which will be the month of May. On my birthday, Monday, May 8th, I will be doing an all-day live stream to try and get as many subscribers as I can in that day. So if you're interested, be sure to check that out. The movie begins with probably one of the funniest things that you can imagine. You've got Johnny Depp playing a chameleon who is practicing being a theatrical individual with a broken Barbie doll and a toy fish. And he's doing like these voice practice things. I can't provide any audio due to copyright reasons. There's a couple of my videos that have been copywritten, and I've tried to, negotiate a uncopyright of that, but it hasn't happened. So in order to prevent that, I can't really show any audio of the movie. With that being said, we continue with Johnny Depp's character, who we won't name until he comes up with his name eventually later on to the desert. But his owners are traveling through the Mojave Desert, and due to a car accident, he is thrown out of his terrarium, and immediately it is shown that it is exponentially warm. You could even say slightly toasty where he is. And we see him struggle to try and get across the road so he doesn't get hit, but eventually he does get hit, survives somehow, miraculously. Probably main character plot armor, if I'm being completely honest. And he comes across Roadkill. And I say Roadkill because that is the name he is given in the subtitles. Anyways, Roadkill is like this older mentor figure for Johnny Depp's character. And he kind of gives him this beating around the bush metaphorical life lesson about getting across the other side of the road. But that won't come into importance until later on into the film, so we'll just skip past that. And we watch as Johnny Depp's character slowly makes his way across the desert towards the town of Dirt. He has a couple of shenanigans happen where he meets up with a rock toad. After that, he barely manages to survive being attacked by a hawk, and then meets up with another lizard lady named Beans. And it's pretty much set right off the bat that this is like an old western town that they're heading towards, hence the name Dirt. Town as old as dirt kind of a thing. Johnny Depp's character rides in the cart with Beans, pretty much annoying the crap out of her all the way until they get just outside the town, and she kicks him out of the cart and he has to walk the rest of the way there. He eventually goes inside the tavern of the town and asks for a glass of water, which everybody there finds absolutely hilarious, because instead of water being a normal resource that everybody has, it is a form of income. Like, that's the equivalent to money is water because of it being so sparse in the desert. So he instead gets cactus juice and has this kind of weird questioning where all of the townspeople are basically asking him who he is, what he's doing, so forth and so on. And eventually he comes up with the name Rango, and they mistake him for a outlaw who killed the Jenkins brothers. It's never explained who the Jenkins brothers are. It's just stated that is what Rango has done, and it is pretty funny because he says, "Oh, I killed them with one bullet," and come to find out there are 7 of them. Eventually, a rent collector shows up. His name is Bad Bill. He's a Gila monster, and they have this weird interaction where Rango just continuously beats on this poor guy. Yeah, I mean, I say poor guy. He's a bad dude, but still, he continuously just antagonizes him. And then eventually, Bad Bill challenges Rango to a duel. They go out to the streets, almost have this duel. Rango makes a fool of himself, and that hawk that chased Rango earlier in the film, where he met the toad, appears and chases Rango instead of them having a duel. And eventually, Rango, through sheer dumb luck and main character bullshit powers, manages to kill the hawk. And that gets Rango a one-way ticket towards seeing the mayor. The mayor is a elderly desert tortoise, and he makes Rango the new sheriff of Dirt. After that, he goes to the town's clothing maker, who happens to be a spider, which will give me the opportunity to take a second to put in a little bit of the animation in this movie is insane. For a movie that came out in 2011, it looks real. There are certain scenes where it looks real. It's genuinely kind of an uncanny valley effect. It's super bizarre and weird, but I like it. It is weird in a good way. I'm somebody who grew up watching Westerns. I was born and spent most of my life in New Mexico, so I was surrounded by all of these, old Western stories and all of that kind of stuff. And to watch a animated film about comedy in the aspect of old Western style things was genuinely just entertaining to me. It will always be entertaining to me because I love those kinds of movies. But moving on, the townspeople warn Rango about Rattlesnake Jake, who murdered the previous sheriff and will now come to town since the hawk is gone. But Bean brings up a point to Rango that there's some weird fishy stuff going on because there seems to be a weird shortage of water. While Rango is, flaunting across the town and stuff, a group of bandits, bank robber, mole people, which, once again, the animation was a little too real for these people, but they open up a hole in the middle of the town, and Rango directs them towards the bank, and it's like one of those, you're supposed to stop these people, but I get that you don't understand that they are, bank robbers, but still, it's kind of funny. That next morning, the bank got robbed, all of the water's gone, and so Rango creates a posse, and he goes out and he searches for the bank robbers. And it actually brings up one of my favorite characters in the entire movie is the Raven, who's based off of Native American people. And I just find it really funny that there's so many moments where Rango says some rather sketch things that I'm like, that's almost racist. That's you're tipping the toe line there. He helps Rango track down the bandits. They come across where they are, and Rango comes up with this kind of weird plan where he cross-dresses as a fair maiden, and they do this play. They get to the point to where they're like, "Hey, put your hands up. This is an arrest. Put you and your whole family. Put your hands up." And the mole guy is like, "Oh, my whole family," and he does this call, and hundreds of clearly referencing inbred people come out of the ground, and it's very one of those like yikes moments because they're very deformed, and like this is supposed to be kind of a kids movie, but there are so many moments where you're like, I don't think that's meant for children. I think those jokes were meant for the adults in the room. Anyways, Rango takes back the water jug. They try and escape, but eventually get stopped, and the jug ends up revealing itself as being empty because it had a cloth over it. I didn't say that earlier, but I didn't think it was that important of a detail. Rango arrests the mole man and takes them to the town where he hangs his head down low and he says that he couldn't find the water, but he goes to see the mayor and he goes to tell him what happened, and he discovers that the dirt on his boots were very similar to the dirt that was on the ground near the bank teller's body. I didn't mention that earlier, but I'm mentioning it now because I forgot about it. Rango keeps stepping on the mayor's toes, and eventually it gets to the point where the mayor's basically making a threat towards Rango. Rango goes, I'm a man of the law, I will follow the law, and if you're breaking the law, then I will take you in, kind of a thing. We get to see what happened to the old sheriff when Rattlesnake Jake shows up and basically completely disassembles Rango's entire story about him being brothers with Rattlesnake Jake and him killing the Jenkins brothers and just the whole shabacle. So Rango leaves, realizing that he's nobody. And for a comedy movie made for children about a Western style sheriff thing, this movie has a very deep undertone towards it, which I'll get into when I get into the review section. But just keep that in the back of your mind, because it's very much a deep undertone. Rango eventually makes his way back to the street, and he takes his hat off, and he's ready to die. And so he crosses the street, and instead of being hit by a car, he makes it to the other side, and then he falls asleep, probably from exhaustion and sadness, to be completely honest. And then Rango is carried off by a bunch of roly-polies, which, if you've never played with roly-polies, they're fun. They're fun to play with. They're like these little small insects that roll into a ball. They're kind of like armadillos, but insects. He's carried all the way to the Spirit of the West, which is heavily implied to be Clint Eastwood. Like, you could see where they got Clint Eastwood's inspiration from. I mean, he had a bunch of golden warriors protecting his chariot, and his golden warriors happen to be Emmys. The Spirit of the West gives Rango some really good advice, and he says, no man can walk out on his own story. And so with the aid of Roadkill and the mysterious Yuccas cactus, which have had like this kind of spiritual aspect throughout the entire film, about them being able to walk and then search for water. Roadkill and the Yuccas cactuses eventually turn on the water as Rango reappears and challenges Rattlesnake Jake to a duel, and he also frees the molemen before they can be executed. Rattlesnake Jake and Rango fight. Rango takes a bullet out of his gun because he knows he's not going to win. He gets captured. Him and Beans get put into the water. Beans accidentally swallows the bullet, so he has to perform the Heimlich maneuver, and in that instance, she shoots out the bullet and breaks the water jug. But in doing so, he basically sentenced the mayor to death because the mayor tried to kill Rattlesnake Jake with his gun, but his gun didn't have any bullets because he had taken the bullets out. It was one of those moments where the bad guys won, but also the good guys won because the bad guys lost, kind of a thing. But Rattlesnake Jake and Rango have this kind of endearing moment where they tip their hat towards each other, recognize each other as legends, and the movie basically ends that way. So, right off the bat, we're gonna hop right into what I liked about this movie. Like I said earlier, the animation. Holy crap. The animation in this freaking movie is insane. I mean, especially considering, like, with a budget of $135 million and having such big names like Johnny Depp and Bill Nye, and not Bill Nye, but Bill Nye. It is insane to see that they were able to pull this off with that little amount of money. Insane animation. And with a runtime of 107 minutes, they managed to pack it full of just so many references to Old West movies. I saw some references to Blazing Saddles, Josie Wales, and a few other Old Western movies that I personally know of and have seen. I can't recommend this movie enough. It was really, really good. Downright stunning. Now, moving on to one of the moments in the movie that I thought was super touching and endearing is the fact that Rango spends his entire life prior to going to the town of Dirt not knowing who he is, not having an identity. That's why he was an actor and why he tried to come up with all of these stories, because he had nobody. He was nobody. But taking on this identity of Rango gave him a purpose, gave him a reason to exist, gave him a reason to live. And when Rattlesnake Jake took that away from him, he was nobody again. So he'd rather die, hence him crossing to the street or getting to the other side, which is just a constant reference throughout the movie, and I view it as always being dying. It is such a heartwarming and endearing thing to see that in the end he adopted the mantle of Rango and took it and made it his own, and he became Rango. He didn't allow himself to fail. And I just really like that. It's a very touching and honestly inspiring thing to know who you are because it is who you are, and to discover who you are through other people giving you the opportunity to be somebody you want to be. Super touching and endearing. And I may be reading into it, to be honest, but I really do enjoy it. Now, for the score of this movie, I'm going to give it a solid 8.5 out of 10. There are a couple of crude jokes that I think are a little unnecessary. The super cheap jokes about the town of Dirt and things like that, I didn't find super entertaining, but the story behind it, the animation, and the voice acting is phenomenal. Rattlesnake Jake is probably the best voice act character in the entire film, and he's voice acted by Bill Nye, who you probably recognize him as Davy Jones in the right? He's Davy Jones? He's Davy Jones, isn't he? Yeah. He also plays as the replacement minister in Harry Potter in the Deathly Hallows Part 1. He's a phenomenal actor, and most, if not all of his movies I would recommend you watching. But he brings a whole new meaning of being an outlaw, because he's got, that slight British accent, but he kind of plays with it a little in the film, and it's very noticeable. I think he did a phenomenal job. I also think Johnny Depp honestly did a pretty good job, but he wasn't perfect. I think this might have been his first time voice acting. I'm not 100% positive, but either way, he did a really good job. Now, with that being said, I think that is going to bring us to the wind down of the video. If you enjoyed the video, please do like and please do subscribe. Any and all support is appreciated, and I do appreciate you guys, and I see your comments, and I try to respond to every comment. If I don't respond, then it's either that I think that there's no real way for me to respond, or I just truly have nothing to say. I'm not somebody who talks unless I have something to say. I don't like just continually talking. Having no point means nothing to me, kind of a thing. But with that, I think I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.